What is up, my friends? Welcome to Shaatir's channel again. I am Shaatir. I call myself Shaatir. And अभी तक तुम लोग इतने सारे podcasts and I would say in the last week a funny video, a funny-esque video. That's what you've been receiving from my channel. On my personal Instagram, I've been busy writing poetry, which has been phenomenal. I can get into that as well. But it might seem like the channel, at least, is taking a pivot into something that it hasn't done before. And I figured कि मैं तुम लोगों से बात करूं, explaining what is coming up next and maybe riff on, the joys of experimentation, the uncertainty of experimentation and all of those things. First of all, let's talk about the channel. जब से मैंने यहाँ पे where I live, I built a small studio. I figured I was great at doing podcasts, no doubt about it. Then yesterday only I was talking with a young friend of mine, and he was telling me that you think कि अभी experimentation is all over the place, like how horizontally you're spread apart, but it's actually responsible for a lot of your great projects. And he was of course referring to Dostcast, which is surprising how well that is doing. All I have to do is go and sit with my friends, have a conversation, and see what happens. Of course, I have some mental anchors in my head कि मेरे को कहाँ लेके जानी है, but there is a lot more spontaneity in it than my previous podcasts. For the longest time, I used to believe that English में ही बात कर सकते हैं और English is the best way to broadcast myself. The experiment to even start this channel to do the Dostcast changed that, right? There is that. As far as the future direction of the channel goes, I'm more experimental now than ever. I thought कि हल्का सा live stream कर लेना ads वाली या फिर एक funny video बना लेना was probably the cap to my experimentation, but I'm surprised by how far I'm willing to push the envelope because I don't like being boxed in and being told कि मैं एक writing वाला YouTuber हूँ. And if I'm being very honest, writing has sort of taken a backseat. It's still here. I'm still going to make writing videos, no doubt about it. But now with the writing videos, what I will do is I will simply speak about the insights that I have when I'm writing on my own, as opposed to answering specific questions. And I'll tell you why. I will also answer specific questions, but when people ask me how to write a cold email, I can only give you an answer around कि मैंने किस तरह से cold email लिखा लोगों को अपने podcast पे बुलाने के लिए. ठीक है? That answer might not be universally applicable. So I don't believe in giving out advice that I'm not sure will apply to you, in a way that it works for you. Simple as that. What else? I want to talk about poetry for a sec. When I was 13 or 14, मैं इतनी ज़्यादा poems लिखता था. And I would get encouragement from my parents and teachers. Many would not understand what I was trying to write, but they could understand that there was the use of adjectives, there was rhyme scheme, all of that. I wasn't someone who read a lot of poetry, which comes as a surprise because people often ask me कि अच्छे poets बता दो. A tweet that I read recently as a 24-year-old around how your 20s are basically you doing the same things you did at 13, but except now you do them shamelessly. I think that's absolutely true. There was a lot of resistance in my head कि मैं दोबारा poetry कैसे post करूँ, right? And then I did it thanks to encouragement from a few friends and then realizing that I'm at the right spot. Also, something very important that I want to address. I heard the author the poet Jeet Thayil talk about if you want to be a poet, prepare to suffer. I took that as casually as like क्या मतलब है इस बात का? Until I had to suffer. I'm not going to go into the details of my suffering, but only in suffering did poetry come out of me. Now this is another, this will, cause people to divide themselves in two groups around whether suffering is needed for art, whether you are a tortured artist, all that crap. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying when things are so bad, it is inevitable to try to find a metaphor in your suffering, to try to find a meaning in this, that there is more to your inner life than the outward clause of suffering, something like that. Okay? So I was surprised how it came back to me. For me, it echoed very much a sentiment that Jeet Thayil's chief protagonist of the Book of Chocolate Saints shares when he's at the end of the book and he's almost dying. Suddenly a poem comes to him and he writes his last poem before he dies. So I'm very happy that poetry has come back to me. अब मैं क्या करने वाला हूँ? Another announcement people who don't know is I'm working hard to get some of my best poems in a book and then publishing it by the end of June, I hope, or in the middle of June or at the start of June. अभी तो मैं finalize कर रहा हूँ सिर्फ poems, but this is sort of the part where I, build in public and tell you about it कि क्या चल रहा है. There are many poems, many recent ones. I'm going to put in some old ones as well, give context, maybe have illustrations, all of that. I would very much appreciate if you buy this book, if you enjoy my poems. If you have not checked out my poems, तुम Instagram पे जाके देख सकते हो. When many people ask me where they can read my writing, I think now I can effectively say that the poems are a repertoire of my writing that you can benefit from, that you can look at. Please do not ask me read your poems and review them because I cannot review poems. People don't review poems. वो कोई ऐसी चीज़ नहीं है जो तुम्हारा स्कूल का एक एग्जाम का पेपर है जिस पे मैं ग्रेड करूँ कि ये अच्छा है, ये बुरा है, यहाँ ऑफ है या नहीं है. There are rules to poetry, but I've seen all rules being broken, so there is no point reviewing it. ठीक है, I can review writing, but even that has become a nightmare recently with the influx of writing coming in. So I will have to figure out a system to make sure that that happens. Maybe through like the join button on YouTube or something else. Then there are other things. I may do something around a small podcasting workshop because it is very evident to me now कि इतने सारे podcast कर रखे हैं. There are clearly some things I understand about the craft better than most people, and I have no problem putting it out and helping you. I also have some very dirty little tricks and strategies. When I say dirty, that's a subjective word. That will get your game to an ace level. तो ये scene है. Anyway, that's for sales. Now let's talk about all of this whole venture, right? मेरे को बड़ा अच्छा लग रहा है that I've been able to finally address you, looking directly at you and talking to you after doing a bunch of podcasts and all that. For the longest time, I wasn't doing this because I was feeling, I do not have any more ideas. Yes, the free writing guy does not have any more ideas around what to speak to his audience about. What else can I educate you about? What other writing tip / thinking tool / creativity object I can give you, right? So I figured the best way is to just speak and see what happens. Whenever I tried to write too much structure, it always ended up not working in my favor. I just figured out that while I am someone who stress tests his ideas and makes them better on paper, there is something about the spontaneity of speech, ऐसे एकदम impromptu बोलना, which allows a lot of gems to happen. ठीक है? So there is that. Of course, it's been a pleasure. It continues to be a pleasure to do this for you. I never realized when I started YouTube that this would become my work, but in fact it has. And I'm now able to support a couple of people in my team because of this work. Without tooting my own horn, I also believe that you have no idea the sort of impact you make when you start putting yourself out there. It is only visible in hindsight when you see other people changing their habits in a very specific way. तो you realize होता है, wow, हो सकता है ये मेरी वजह से हो. So, I want to end this on this note. Whenever you feel discouraged कि whatever broadcasting shenanigan I'm doing, or whatever foolish thing that I think I'm doing that other people are not liking, I should stop. I think you don't realize how important you are. That you are a node in a network. So the lack of your best or not actualizing your full potential hurts everyone. When you don't show up for an appointment that you set, what that does is that person who was expecting you to show up realizes कि human beings cannot be trusted or whatever, right? And you are adding to the layer of human mistrust. When a bunch of people around you are nice to you and look up to you as, a role model or whatever, and you do something very unflattering, it causes a ripple in the node. You can't avoid it, but it does happen. So I always thought I could always enjoy this contrarian style of speaking to you, managing my perception in a way कि मैं बहुत spontaneous भी हूँ जिस तरह मैं हूँ private life के अंदर, और मैं ज्ञान भी देता हूँ, right? Like ऐसे, and people often use the terms harami, bakchod, all of those for me, right? Or that I look like a villain, all of those things. And I sort of try to embody that reputation as well to see how far it goes. But lately, a part of me is like, let's leave this trickster energy aside for a while. Let us try to do plain old good and see what that does. Instead of trying to make solution-oriented video, let me try this for the next week or so, where I just speak at you impromptu. And I don't know what the response is going to be. I'm going to check the comments and figure out. But if this was incoherent, it was deliberately done so. Thank you so much for being on this channel. Again, बहुत मजा आया. Like, share, subscribe करना मत भूलना. Call to action. ठीक है, comment भी करना. मुझे बताना कैसा लगा. And what more do you want from this channel? If there is a specific need you want that you have, maybe I can try to address that. All of those things. Chalo, okay. See you in the next one.